Good afternoon. My name is Evelyn David, and I'd like to call this meeting to order at 2 o'clock on October 19th. This is the Selection Committee for RFP number 2022-004 to apply annual audit services. Let's stand up and pledge the allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting has been publicly noticed and recorded in accordance with section 119.071 of the Florida statutes. The audience may not participate in the discussions, and we request that you kindly refrain from commenting. And make sure your phones are off or on vibrate. Two. The committee's responsibility was to review the vendors' submittals to ensure they complied with the solicitation requirements and evaluate the submittals to make a recommendation to the town commission to award a contract. The overall objective is to make the best selection to meet the town's needs while following a process to ensure fair and equitable treatment of all proposers and act in a sound fiduciary manner for the town. We previously, at our previous meeting, Eric Marmer talked to us about the selection process and the elements that went into it. So I think now we should discuss it.
I'm just going to go around. We should just introduce ourselves for the record.
Okay.
My name is Eric Marmer. I'm the purchasing agent for this RFP, and I'm a non-voting member.
My name is Jason Chudnovsky. I'm on the planning board and I am a voting member.
My name is Mara Frederickson. I'm the finance director for the city of Boynton Beach, and I'm a voting member.
My name is David Delina. I'm the finance director for the town of Highland Beach, and I'm a non-voting member.
And I'm Evelyn David, and I'm chairman of the committee and a voting member. Jason, I think I'm going to start with you and ask you if you have any initial comments about the propositions that you read.
I thank you very, very much. I found the information that was given to us outstanding. The firms all show very, very, very well. They're reputable. They have experience. I was a little skewed knowing the town of Highland Beach and living here. I kept on saying to myself, would we be better with a larger firm or a smaller firm? And as I looked at all four of the proposals, I became a little bit more interested in the smaller firms. Not that the larger firms didn't have great capabilities. I also felt that I really wanted to look at a firm that was putting a high percentage of their time into similar situations that we had here in Highland Beach. So I found myself being focused on the two smaller firms versus the larger firms.
I kind of agree with you. As I looked at some of the larger firms and some of the output and when they were completing some of their audits and things like that, I noticed that some of them get lost in translation, I guess. So I found the same as far as when I started scoring and looking at them, that some of the smaller firms actually seemed to accommodate more. They had more information about communicating regularly with the staff. They talked about the different checkpoints and things like that. So I appreciated that.
And actually, I also looked at the smaller firms, among other things. Local to me can very often be better. And I've recently had an experience with a larger firm where they had a Florida branch and a Maryland branch, and it just didn't work. So, yeah, I was more impressed with the two smaller firms. I like the fact that they're both near here. Okay.
Which I agree wholeheartedly. It's also soothing to know that whereas we are now part of a virtual world, that the capabilities of the smaller firm being on campus and being here in Highland Beach would be, as far as I was concerned, would be of great value. And I got that feeling in looking at the report and seeing it. What I did not see, and I'm used to seeing in past situations, is usually the management letter that's written at the end and the recommendations that would be made to the client. I find that to be a very useful tool in making a selection, especially with technology is changing so dramatically. Not that we're willing to invest millions of dollars in technology right now. On the other hand, it's always good to know through a report what they would recommend as far as the future is concerned, especially where we're looking at an evergreen 3 years plus 2 years. I thought that would be very, very helpful, what they would see down the road as far as technology changes.
Thank you. Well, maybe we should go into how we scored
Yeah,
and what we scored.
I'm going to bring up the spreadsheet and then, hold on 1 second. Just going to share my screen here. There we go. Okay, so if we are ready to announce scores, I would ask that when you're reading your score sheet, you say your name and then the firm you're scoring, and then the category for which you're scoring. For anyone that's listening and not watching. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I would say we just go right down the line and I'll follow along.
Okay, Jason, why don't you start?
Gee, I seem to be, it may be it's alphabetical.
Next time I'll
Alphabetical
switch
last
it.
name. I rated Grau and Associates the highest in my choices. I rated them, and it wasn't a point here, a point there, but I just wanted to make the point that I gave them the 50 points as far as expertise and experience in the area. When we looked at the audit approach, I felt it was something that I was comfortable with in working with auditing companies, and I gave them a 30. I basically rated them extremely high, trying to set a tone for at 100%. And that's the way I looked at Grau and Associates. Should I continue?
Yeah, I think if it might be better if we just go down the
Okay.
line for each firm and then you can discuss each one. Probably makes the
Okay.
most sense.
Mara?
Your Grau first, is that what you're?
Yeah. I think Grau, and then we'll go to hopefully your sheet's the same. So,
Yes.
Yeah, go to James Moore, then
Okay.
Malden, and then
So while there were some things that I appreciated about Grau, there were some other things that I didn't. So actually Grau is third on my list. I actually graded Nolan Holt as the highest for a couple of different reasons. I looked at Grau, and first of all, they are the current firm here. And sometimes it is better to change that up. But the other part of that, I noticed that they haven't gotten the financial statements out in a timely manner in the last several years. And when I actually researched some of their other locations that they listed as references, they haven't gotten those financial statements out timely in years past either. And for me, if you're issuing financial statements, it should be timely data. And the fact that they aren't concerned me. So they are actually third on my list.
All right.
if you just want to
The score.
read your scores for them, and I'll go down the
Sure.
line.
So for expertise and experience, I gave them a 38, and for audit approach, I gave them a 17.
Thank you.
Okay. I had some of the same concerns. I gave them a 40 for expertise and a 24 for audit approach.
Okay, got that. And then is there any more discussion about Ground Associates, or do we want to move on to James Moore?
I think let's go to James Moore. You want to start,
Sure.
Mara, please?
Sure. For James Moore, actually, I had them graded the lowest, but they were close to Grau. The audit fee is what actually brought them down scoring wise. Overall, things that I didn't like that they used. So it says staff has direct experience of single audit and specifically assigned to it. So I actually broke it down into each category. So the firm's experience, the quality of the firm's professional, the firm's experience performance with single audits, and then ability to perform additional services. What I noticed was some of their experience related to it wasn't not a lot of local cities. They had some counties and things like that. And so that was really kind of where I scored them down.
And what's your scores for them?
Okay, so for expertise and experience, I gave them a 38, and audit approach, I gave them a 20.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go the middle. Yeah, I was not. I don't know, I scored them a 40 for expertise and I gave them a 25 for audit approach. I found it a little convoluted.
We're getting closer. Yeah, I also gave the 40, start with James Moore for expertise. I gave them a 20 for the audit approach. I actually rated them as a total of at 75 was my rating
What did you go for audit approach? I'm sorry.
James Moore,
on James Moore.
What was the audit approach total? Sorry.
The audit approach was a 30. I'm sorry, it was a 20
Was that for, what is that, expertise and
for
experience?
James Moore. For James Moore, the audit approach was 20, and for the expertise and experience, I gave them a 40.
A 40. Got it. Thank you. All right, moving on to Malden and Jenkins. Do we want to start with Mara again and then? go this
sure,
way?
we can start, Molly.
Sure. So for expertise and approach, I gave them a 40, and audit approach, I gave them a 25. I liked that 87% of their staff retention was 5 or greater years. That they did a 4-day training for their annual single audits, and that they had quite a few that had the GFOA certificates and with their clients as well. One of the things that I shied away from was the fact that they were more of an international firm, a larger firm, and they didn't seem to have as much hands-on approach with the city itself.
Thank you.
Actually, my scores were the same. I gave them a 40 for expertise and experience, and I gave them 25 for audit approach. And again, one of the things that concerned me is the lack of local towns that I think would mirror our processes. And that concerned me.
Thank you. Jason?
Yes. Again, the size of the organization concerned me. They're a big group. Each one of the RFPs spoke about how we would not get lost with lower level people at all. And they've all used that, but my experience has proven that the size of a company can sometimes dictate that in the future, and you're chasing after the partners. I felt the fine firm, but for the town of Highland Beach, I gave them, as far as expertise and experience, a 30 for our own personal needs. I looked at it, needs, desires, and our affordability. And when I looked at all 3 of those areas, I gave on the audit approach, I gave them a 20, and I rated them because of the scope and size and how it would be a fit for us at about a 70 total.
Got it. Thank you. And then moving on to Nolan Holt and Minor, Mar.
So for the expertise and experience, I gave them a 46, and audit approach, I gave them a 28.
Thank you.
Okay, I gave them for expertise and experience a 45. And for audit approach, I gave them a 26. They seem to have done audits in a lot of towns that are very similar to ours. And they also seem to have stayed in a lot of these towns for quite a while. So that means they must have been doing something right.
One of the things I appreciated, actually, they had done the town of Highland Beaches back in like 2014 for several years. And we were issuing, or town of Highland Beach was actually issuing their financial statements on time through them as well. So I appreciated that.
I would agree with that. Their experience with the town of Highland Beach definitely was a factor. It was difficult because what I would like to have asked is what took place at the end of their cycle and what did they find out from both Highland Beach and themselves, which is an unanswered question. But I rated them as the two smaller firms, both they and Grau, to be competitors in this situation. They have maturity in their staff and they have what I would call new blood, which I felt was a good balance. I actually rated them again equal to Grau. I gave them a 50 because I felt they were a great candidate. A 30 is where I rated it as far as the audit approach. And I threw in the 20 to bring it. I wanted two with 100% and open that up for debate.
So just to clarify, the audit fees are not something we score individually. They're done through an equation based on the pricing. So just to put that on the record. So we have a ranking up here. If you turn your attention to the overhead, we have Nolan Holt Minor as the #1 ranked firm currently at 284.10 points. We have Brown Associates as the second firm at 259 points. And we have Malden and Jenkins, the third firm at 235.80 points. And James Moore, the fourth, at 230.70 points. So now there's a few options that we have here. It sounds like there's some questions that still need to be asked. And I guess my recommendation as a purchasing agent for this would be, if you still have questions that need to be asked, we should maybe bring them back for an interview and have them maybe present some more info to us. That's your decision as the committee, or you can finalize the scores now and move forward with what we have. That's completely up to you. So I'll leave it back to you.
I'd like to ask a question if possible. I think we're probably in agreement that the smaller two firms are candidates. And if there's questions, and I was hoping that personally we would get to the smaller two firms where we'd be able, and I think some of the comments are outstanding from my associates. But right now, in looking at both firms, one who's had experience with the town of Highland Beach and the other who has not. And as you look at the infrastructure that they both provide with
No, I think they both
They've
have.
both had
They both have.
experience
They
with
both have.
And they
town.
both-
One
and-
is more recent than.
more
the
recent than the other.
Correct.
And then as you look at the infrastructure of both groups,
Mhm.
they have diversity in their teams, which is really great. But I'm just curious, as you're looking at the positives and negatives of the two firms, what you see that I might be missing myself.
So one of the things actually I looked at, it talked about the adequacy of analytical and substantive procedures and then their sampling techniques. And one of the things I really liked about Nolan was they had the software and it says it utilized sample software, that it's done remotely, saving staff the time and inconvenience of spending the time out here pulling and testing samples and whatever during the audit, which can be a tedious process for a smaller staff as well. So that was one of the things that I actually thought would work well for this town, was that piece of it as well. So.
Yeah, I like Nolan also, and I just felt that they were, sometimes it's good to change who you're using, because our staff changes, so perhaps the interaction with our staff would be different. And I would like, I like the smaller firm, but I think that I don't like the smallest generally. I like to go with something that's small, so you're not getting lost in the mix, but maybe not so small that they don't have the ability to keep up with it.
Totally understand. From an IT perspective, did you see a difference between the two firms as far as how they would approach it from an IT perspective in their experience?
I'm looking at my notes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not an IT person, so not really.
and by the way, just my perception, and perception sometimes is not reality, but I found that the team that was being shown to us from Grau seemed to have more expertise in the IT area, but that is to be judged, by people who are very, very close to the situation.
David?
Yeah, IT is important. I would tell you that for the size of our town versus the size of a Boynton Beach, right? Our budget is 20 million. Theirs is 200 million. Technology isn't as much as a factor. The reason why is because not for the auditing firm. It is important, as she brought out, their sampling techniques and how quickly they can go through our sample size. But it's really important. We have great technology, our town. So any information they want, we can give it to them digitally, things like that. Then they can run through it. So I think Highland Beach, once again, is unique, so technology as important, it is important. It's just not weighted as much because we're so small. You know what I mean? 58% of our expenditures outside of payroll are to the Del Rey. Right? Because we have a contract, we have fire rescue, we have water and sewer. And so other than payroll and retirement contributions, you just tested 58% of all of our expenditures. You know what I mean? So,
Correct.
So it really gets narrowed down into, I like what she had said, Myra, I apologize. I like that what she had said when she did her research and said, these firms had their clients producing information on a timely basis. To me, an audit firm has to stay on top of their clients. They don't necessarily have to babysit it the whole way, but we are going to be, your staff here is going to be doing day-to-day work. We're going to be building a fire station. We're going to be adding, and then another layer is obviously the audit side. I will tell you, it's helpful from a finance director to make sure that auditor keeps me on pace. I need them to keep me on pace. I need them to be calling me, emailing me, hey, this is still open. Oh, yep, I'll get that. You know what I mean? So they help me.
My associate from Boynton Beach definitely turned my view in that. No question about it. I thought that was a key point in my own feelings, and I thank you for the comment, because I thought that was a turning point for myself.
Absolutely, and I appreciate the fact that she did that research. So thank you.
I now have two questions that kind of show my ignorance in this area. When they do the audit, do they do everything in the town in that audit, or do they separate out the building department and the water sewer department?
Yeah, they'll do everything. Now, when it gets reported, in the ACFR, I guess now the terminology is, in the financial report, things get separated as a requirement. But yeah, they do group everything together. Certain firms, when they know, like, for example, when they know it's a 3-year agreement, they may, over that 3-year period of time, they may hit certain areas heavy in 1 year versus the next. Like, for example, they may say, hey, time is ticking. We got to make sure we're moving quickly. So this year we're going to focus a lot on payroll. Maybe next year they'll focus a lot on the fixed assets. Maybe, do you know what I mean? So that way they touch and they sample everything, but they can really laser focus on one particular area. But nowadays, with technology, and because of the size of the town of Highland Beach, their sample size, they can sample a lot. because of technology, because of the way the town of Highland Beach is structured. So
And as far as Delray, because you're right, that's where our money goes. Do they go back and check that we're paying the proper amount, or do they just accept the numbers that Delray gives us as a given?
no, what they will do is, the first year with a new auditor, let's say, is a little bit more encompassing. The reason why is they have to get all of the agreements, right? They have to get all of the documents and they have to start going through them. When they look at a particular expenditure, like for example, let's say our sewer, as you're aware, the town has a water and sewer department, but we send our sewer to Delray to
Right.
treat. So what they will do is they will look at the agreement, they'll look at the history of the agreement, and then they will look at the rate per 1,000 gallon and then match that up to the invoice. And that's how they'll test it. Other agreements are fire rescue, which get a little bit more involved. What they will tend to do on the expenditure side is look for reasonableness, right? They'll look at, wow, what did you spend last year versus this year? Was the increase incremental? They'll look at some of the detail, the line item detail as to what's included in there to see if there's any outliers. But mainly at the end of the day, they're always auditing the balance sheet, assets and liabilities. And they usually do reasonableness testing for the revenues and expenditures, because most of the time that information will remain relatively constant. Or if we do have ups and downs, we can explain it. So.
Yeah, because I know we have had issues with getting information from Delray on occasion. They can be a little slow. Well, Jason, I know you have more questions. Mara, I don't know if you have any. Would you benefit from having them come in?
I don't think I would. I mean, I'm okay with the scores as is, but.
I would agree with my associate from Boynton Beach.
Well, in that case, perhaps we should decide who we think is the best.
So you just need a motion to rank at least the top 3 vendors. And then once you finalize that, we will bring that as an agenda item to the commission to approve.
I move that we consider the top 3 contendants and review the scores.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay.
So,
Eric, you took down the numbers. Show us which has come out where.
yep, and I'm assuming there's a lot of discussion there, and just clarifying, there was no changes anyone scoring during that time.
I did make changes.
Okay, let's go through.
I
any
did make
changes.
changes
Okay.
as we were
Okay.
talking.
When you're making a change, just again, say your name, because I think, Teresa, the video is not showing the scores right now, it's showing us, right? So when you're reading your scores, be sure to say your name so we know who's saying their score, and then the firm you're scoring, and then the category you're changing.
Through conversation, the changes that I'll start with Grau and Associates. My name is Jason Chudnovsky, and I'm looking at expertise and experience. I rated that as a 40.
Okay, so you changed it from a 50 to a 40.
Correct. On the audit approach, Brado very wisely, I basically ranked that at 20.
From a 30.
And that's correct, and gave them a total of 80.
Got it.
Okay, when it comes to, let me go in order each one of them. I did not change James Moore, and I did not change my feelings about from Malden and Jenkins, but I did change Nolan, Holton Minor. I gave them expertise and experience. I rated them as a 40.
Okay, I had them as a 50.
I'm sorry, I rated them as a 50. I'm sorry. Thank
Okay.
you. And I rated them as a 30.
For Nolan and Holt.
Yes, a 30 as far as audit approach.
Okay,
Okay, and you should come out with a total there of approximately
just to clarify again, sorry, so expertise and experience, you have a 50 for Nolan Holt. And then audit approach, I think you had a 30 there.
That's
right?
correct.
And you kept it at 30?
I did.
Okay, so your scores remain the same. for
Correct.
Nolan
The
Holt.
big change was in Grau.
Got it. Does anyone else have any more changes?
I did not make
No.
changes. No.
Not even-
Okay, so I'm gonna reread through the rankings again for the record. There hasn't been any change to the overall ranking. So Nolan Holt Minor, again, is the #1 ranked firm at 284.10 points. The second ranked firm was Brown Associates with 239 points. The next firm was Malden Jenkins at 235.80 points, and the fourth ranked firm, James Moore and Company, at 230.70 points. And that's their rankings now. So now you just have to clarify again if you want to move forward with the top. You have to rank it by Florida law. You have to rank the top 3 to present. So someone needs to make a motion if you want to move forward with these rankings and second it, and then we'll take it to the commission.
I move that we forward these rankings and send it to the commission.
Second.
We have a second.
All right. That's it. And then if you just want to go over the closing statements, or if you'd like me to.
All right, I'm going to ask the committee members to turn in their signed completed sheets.
I'll take them.
Need to sign this?
Yeah, and if you could sign and write your name, make sure your name is on there, and also that you sign it.
Okay.
Thank you. I received all the scores.
Eric, would you do this?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
All right, since we have finished with that, I'm going to remind everyone that we are still under a cone of silence. We can't discuss this with anyone. And I'm going to close the meeting at 2:33.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice job.
Well.